We only kept you for the tax benefits, my mother said, smiling. At my 25th birthday dinner, in the middle of a crowded restaurant on a Friday night. 6 words. That's all it took to demolish 25 years of everything I thought I knew. But here's the part my mother didn't know. I had been preparing for this exact moment for 8 months. And the people sitting 3 tables behind her, they weren't strangers. I didn't cry. I didn't walk out. And I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope, and everything inside that restaurant changed. But to understand why, you need to hear the whole story. Before I go on, if this story connects with you, take a second to like and subscribe, and drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. I'm Paige. I'm 25. I live in one of those small towns where everybody knows your name and your parents' version of the truth. Now let me take you back 8 months, to the night I found a folder that was never meant for my eyes. 8 months before that dinner, I'm on my hands and knees in my parents' basement sorting boxes. Lorraine, my mother, asked me to clear space for my cousin Brittany's things. Brittany's moving back to town after a breakup, and apparently the basement needs to be spotless by next week. Lorraine didn't ask nicely. She never does. And she just left a sticky note on my apartment door. Basement, Saturday, don't forget. So here I am, covered in dust, dragging cardboard boxes across a concrete floor. Most of it is old Christmas decorations and Glenn's fishing gear. But tucked behind the water heater, I find a box sealed with packing tape, Lorraine's name written across the top in faded marker. I shouldn't open it. I open it. Inside, a manila folder. And inside that folder, my entire life rearranges itself. An official adoption certificate. A birth certificate I've never seen, the original one, with the name Baby Girl Dunbar typed in the center. And underneath both of those, a receipt from a tax consultant. A single line highlighted in yellow. Adoption tax credit, $5,400. I sit on that cold basement floor for 40 minutes. Not crying, just recalculating every memory I have. Every time Lorraine reminded me how lucky I was. Every time Glenn looked away when I asked about baby photos. And every Christmas card that read, "Our greatest blessing," in Lorraine's handwriting, sent to every neighbor on the block. I pull out my phone and call my best friend Claire. She picks up on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "I need you to come over, not to the house, to the parking lot behind the clinic." "Paige, you're scaring me. Just come." I fold the birth certificate, slide it into my jacket pocket, and put Lorraine's box back exactly where I found it. At the name Dunbar burns against my ribs the whole drive to the clinic. That name would change everything. But not yet. Claire meets me in the gravel lot behind Dr. Weller's vet clinic, still wearing her scrubs from the afternoon shift. She reads the birth certificate under the dome light of her Civic, then reads it again. "Dunbar," she says quietly. "You ever heard that name before?" "Never." She sets the paper down. "Remember the DNA kit I gave you for Christmas?" "I do. An ancestry kit. I'm still in the plastic wrap, shoved in my bathroom drawer. I told her I didn't need it. I told her I already knew who I was. That feels like someone else talking now. "Use it," Claire says. "Tonight." So I do. Cheek swab, registration code, sealed envelope. I drop it in the mailbox outside the post office at 11 p.m. 6 weeks for results. 6 weeks to keep my face normal. And for 6 weeks I watch Lorraine with new eyes. I notice things I always noticed, but never named. At the way she says, "After everything we've done for you," whenever I ask to borrow the truck. The way she tells the neighbors, every single one, how adopting me was the hardest and most selfless decision of my life. But her voice carries pride, not pain. The way Glenn goes quiet whenever Lorraine starts that story, finding something very interesting to look at on his shoes. I keep paying my $400 rent on the converted garage apartment behind their house. And I keep showing up for Sunday dinner. I keep saying thanks, Mom, when she passes the potatoes. Claire asks me once, over coffee at the clinic, "How are you holding up?" "I'm waiting," I tell her. She gives me a look. "For what?" "For proof." What I don't tell Claire yet, what I barely admit to myself, is that I'm also waiting for something worse. I'm waiting to find out why a tax receipt was filed next to my birth certificate like they belonged together. The email arrives on a Tuesday, during my lunch break. I'm sitting in my car in the clinic parking lot, eating a granola bar and scrolling through my phone when the notification slides down. Ancestry. Close family match found. I stop chewing. I tap the link. The screen loads slow, the way everything loads slow in a small town with bad signal. And then there it is. Helen Dunbar. Age 47. Location, Ridgemont, a town 2.5 hours east. Match confidence, 99.7%. Relationship, parent. As I stare at her profile photo, a woman with short brown hair and a tired smile, standing in front of a garden. She's wearing scrubs. She's a nurse. Community health clinic, it says. Married to Tom Dunbar, 49. One son, Cody, age 20. I have a brother. The granola bar sits untouched on the passenger seat for the rest of my lunch hour. I try to write an email 7 times. The first 6 are too long, too desperate, too angry, too careful. The 7th is 3 lines. My name is Paige. I believe you may be my biological mother. I'm not angry. I just want to know. I hit send before I can delete it. 4 hours later, my phone buzzes. 1 line from Helen Dunbar. I have been waiting for this email for 25 years. I read it 3 times. Then I lock my phone, press it against my chest, and sit in the clinic parking lot until the sun drops behind the tree line. For 25 years, I thought the people who raised me were the only family I'd ever have. Now, a woman 2.5 hours away is telling me she's been counting the days since she lost me. But Lorraine Mercer doesn't know any of this. Not yet. For 3 months, I live in 2 worlds. On my days off, I drive 2.5 hours to Ridgemont. The first visit, Helen's hands shake so badly she nearly drops the lasagna dish. Tom shakes my hand at the front door and says, "Welcome home, kid," like he's been rehearsing it all week and still almost can't get it out. Cody, 20, lanky, loud, shows me photos of Helen when she was young. "You've got her chin," he says, grinning. "Sorry about that." Helen opens a small jewelry box on the kitchen counter. Inside is a faded hospital wristband, so tiny it wouldn't fit around 2 of my fingers. Baby girl Dunbar. She's kept it for 25 years. I lit a candle every March 15th, she tells me, eyes wet. Every single one. I visit 4 more times over the next 3 months. Each time the drive feels shorter. Add a follow-up. I realize she's never asked a follow-up. I realize she's never asked me a follow-up question in my entire life, not out of respect for my privacy, but because she genuinely doesn't care about the answer. In my apartment at night, I read Helen's letter. She wrote it on hospital stationery. 2 pages, front and back, careful handwriting that gets shakier near the end. She tells me about the night I was born, about the family pressure, about a 22-year-old girl with no money and no one in her corner. I keep the letter in an envelope in my bag. I carry it everywhere. 3 weeks before my birthday, Lorraine does something she hasn't done in 5 years. She offers to take me to dinner. Maggie's place, Friday night. "Just the 3 of us," she says. We have something important to discuss." That sweetness in her voice. I've only ever heard it when she wants something. I know exactly what's coming. 2 weeks before my birthday, I come home from work and find a typed note on my kitchen table. No greeting, no dear Paige, just a single paragraph. Effective next month, rent for the garage apartment will increase from $400 to $850 per month. If this is not workable, a 30 days notice to vacate is required. Lorraine's signature at the bottom. Neat, final. I sit down and do the math on the back of a grocery receipt. $850 for the apartment, $350 for health insurance if I get dropped from the family plan, and something tells me that's next. That's $1,200 a month on a vet technician's salary before food, gas, or the student loans I took out for community college. It doesn't work. It's not meant to work. As I walk across the yard to the main house, Glenn is in the kitchen pouring coffee. "Did you see the note?" I ask. He doesn't look up. "Your mother has her reasons, Paige. Brittany needs a place." "And where do I go?" Glenn stirs his coffee. The spoon clinks against the mug 3 times. He doesn't answer. I stand there for 10 seconds. Then I walk back to my apartment, open my laptop, and search rental listings in Ridgemont. Studios start at $650. One bedroom's around 800. Tight, but possible, especially if I transfer to a clinic out there. I don't argue with Glenn. I don't confront Lorraine. Not because I can't, because there's a difference between reacting and being ready, and I learned that difference the night I found a tax receipt filed next to my birth certificate. Lorraine wants me dependent. That's her leverage. The cheap rent, the insurance, the documents she's held in a locked box my entire life. But leverage only works when the other person has no options. I'm building options. The next morning, I sit in the clinic break room and call the insurance company. If my parents remove me from their family plan before I turn 26, I ask, what are my options? The representative is polite, efficient. They can remove you at any time. You'd have a 60-day qualifying event window to enroll in a marketplace plan. What's the cheapest plan in my area? She types. For a single 25-year-old in a rural zone, roughly $300 to $400 per month. High deductible. I write the number on a napkin. $350. I can swing $350 if I cut everything else to the bone. That afternoon, Claire finds me reorganizing the medication closet, something I only do when I'm trying not to think. Why don't you just confront them now? She asks. Tell them you know. Tell them it's over. I close the cabinet door carefully. Because if I confront them before I'm ready, I lose everything at once. Housing, insurance, and the truth about who I am. I need all three handled before I say a word. Claire is quiet for a moment. Then, you're not waiting because you're scared, are you? No, I'm waiting because I want to be ready. Not angry, not desperate. Ready. That night, I call Helen. I tell her about the rent increase, about the insurance. With us as long as you need. Tom's already with us as long as you need. Tom's already clearing out the guest room. I'll pay rent, I say. Paige. I'm not going from one dependency to another, Helen. Let me pay my way. She's quiet for 3 seconds. You sound exactly like me at 22, stubborn as hell. I almost laugh. Almost. 4 days before my birthday, Bess Lorraine knocks on my apartment door. She's smiling. Not her real smile. The one she saves for church potlucks and parent-teacher nights she hasn't attended in years. The performance smile. Paige, honey, Dad and I want to take you to dinner for your birthday. Maggie's place Friday night, just the three of us. She tilts her head. We have something important to discuss. It'll be nice. I search her face. The sweetness is layered on thick, the way you frost a cake that didn't rise properly. As she's been planning this, I can feel it. Sure, Mom, I say. Sounds nice. She pats my arm, a gesture I suddenly realize she only does when she's about to ask for something or take something away, and walks back across the yard. The second her screen door shuts, I pick up my phone. Helen, it's happening. Friday night, Maggie's place. Silence on the other end, then Helen's voice steady. What do you need from us? Come to the restaurant, all three of you. But book a table, but sit separately. Don't come over unless I signal. I need to hear what they say first. We'll be there, Helen says. Tom's already grabbing his keys. Helen, it's 4 days away. I know. I just want him to know we're going. I sit on the edge of my bed after we hang up. The envelope is in my bag. Helen's letter, our family photo from last month, the DNA results. I press my hand against the bag like I'm checking for a heartbeat. Friday is 4 days away. I have 4 days to hold my breath, keep my face normal, and wait for my own mother to tell me I'm disposable. In a room full of people who believe she's a saint. Friday night, Maggie's place. The restaurant smells like cornbread and cedar. Warm light, oak-paneled walls, a George Strait song on low-through-ceiling speakers. Every table is full or filling. This is the only sit-down restaurant in a town of 4,000, and Friday night is sacred here. I arrive 10 minutes early. My hands are steady. My breathing is not. I scan the room. In the far corner near the window, Helen in a blue blouse, Tom beside her in a flannel button-down, Cody hunched over his phone. Helen sees me. A tiny nod, barely a dip of her chin. That's all. That's enough. I sit at a table in the center of the room. Maggie herself, 63, silver-haired, built like a woman who's been carrying cast-iron skillets since before I was born, waves from behind the register. Happy birthday? Sweetheart, she calls out. I wave back. Underneath the table, my right hand closes around the envelope in my bag. Glenn and Lorraine arrive together. Lorraine is wearing a red dress, something she reserves for Easter and the county fair pageant. Her lipstick matches. She's dressed for a celebration. Glenn wears a button-down shirt with the top button fastened, which he only does when he's uncomfortable. Lorraine slides into the booth across from me. "Don't you look pretty tonight?" 25, can you believe it?" She orders a glass of wine. Glenn orders water. I order nothing. Small talk. Lorraine asks about the clinic. I answer. She doesn't listen. Her eyes keep flicking to her purse, to Glenn, back to me. She's running a script in her head, and the small talk is just the opening credits. 2 tables to our right, Pastor Jim Hadley and his wife settle in with menus. Lorraine notices them. "A way to say this." Glenn is looking at his way to say this. Glenn is looking at his plate like there's a script written on the mashed potatoes. Lorraine folds her hands on the table, practiced, almost pastoral. "You're adopted," she says. "We took you in when you were 3 days old." I don't react. Not because I'm acting. That's because I've already lived through this moment, 8 months ago, on a basement floor. Lorraine reads my silence as shock. She keeps going. "We kept you because, honestly, the tax situation made it work for us. The credits, the deductions, it helped us get through some very rough years." She pauses, a small, closed-mouth smile. "But now you're 25. The benefits ended. And frankly, Paige, we've done our part." The words hang in the air like smoke. At the next table, as a woman's fork stops halfway to her mouth, Glenn clears his throat. "We've consulted a lawyer about formalizing the separation. Legally." "You have 30 days to move out of the apartment," Lorraine adds, reaching into her purse. She pulls out a folded sheet of paper, the same clinical tone as the rent notice. "Brittany needs it." She slides the paper across the table. I don't look at it. I look at Lorraine, straight into her eyes, and I hold that gaze for 5 full seconds, long enough that she shifts in her seat. "Is that all?" I say. The words come out quieter than I expected. Not hurt, not angry, just clear. Lorraine blinks. The smile falters. She wasn't expecting that. She was expecting tears, maybe begging. Something she could manage, something she could pat on the head and walk away from feeling righteous. "What do you mean, is that all?" she says. I don't answer. Not yet. That's because the next thing I say will change everything in this room, and I need her to feel the silence first. Lorraine doesn't like silence. She never has. Silence is a space she can't control, and Lorraine Mercer needs to control every room she enters. "I know this is hard," she says, leaning forward, "but it's better you hear it from us than find out some other way." "How generous of you," I say. Her jaw tightens. "Don't get sarcastic with me. We raised you. We fed you. Oh, we gave you a roof. For $5,400 a year." The number lands. Lorraine's hand twitches against the table. She didn't expect me to know that figure. Glenn, quietly. "This doesn't have to be ugly, Paige." "Then why did you bring paperwork to a birthday dinner?" He doesn't have an answer for that. Lorraine reaches for her purse again, pulls out a pen, and sets it beside the folded paper. "Sign this tonight," she says, "and we'll give you the full 30 days. If you don't, it's 2 weeks." Her voice is louder than she intends. 2 tables over, Pastor Jim sets down his fork. At the corner booth, Maggie pauses with a coffee pot in her hand, her eyes moving between Lorraine and me. I look at the pen, then at the paper, then at Lorraine. "I'm not signing anything at a dinner table, Lorraine." The name lands harder than the number did. Not Mom. Lorraine. First time in 25 years. Lorraine's mouth opens. Closes. Her nostrils flare. And for just a moment, the mask comes down completely. Not sadness, not regret. Irritation. Pure, uncut irritation that I am not following the script she wrote for tonight. She was supposed to deliver the news. I was supposed to cry. She was supposed to comfort me just enough to feel noble. I was supposed to sign. I didn't. "Excuse me?" Lorraine's voice drops to a hiss. "I am still your mother." "You just told me you're not." The sentence sits between us like a wall. Then Glenn makes a sound, half cough, half groan, and shifts in his seat. Lorraine's grip on her wine glass tightens until her knuckles go white. "I raised you," she says. "That makes me your mother." "Then why does it feel like a transaction that just expired?" Lorraine's eyes dart around the restaurant. She can feel people watching. This was supposed to be contained, quiet. A tidy little handoff. But I'm not cooperating, and Lorraine Mercer cannot stand a scene she doesn't direct. Fine, she says, and her voice shifts, sharper now, the pretense of gentleness falling away. You want the truth? Your real mother was some girl from Ridgemont who couldn't even take care of… Stop. One word. Low, clear. I hold up my hand, palm out, and Lorraine actually stops mid-sentence. Not because she respects me, because the look on my face is something she hasn't seen before, and it unsettles her. You don't get to talk about her, I say. Not tonight. And not ever. Her? Lorraine almost laughs. You don't even know her. I don't answer. Instead, I reach into my bag and pull out the envelope, slowly. I set it on the table between us, next to the unsigned paper and the untouched pen. Lorraine stares at it. Plain white envelope, slightly bent at the corner from months inside my bag. What is that? She says. I let the question hang. Glenn leans forward, squinting. Pastor Jim, 2 tables over, has stopped pretending not to listen. As I rest my fingertips on the envelope and wait. Because what's inside this envelope is going to dismantle every story Lorraine Mercer has ever told about herself, and I want her to feel it coming before it arrives. Lorraine can't stand the silence. She never could. Answer me, Paige. What is in that envelope? I say nothing. My fingers rest on it, waiting. And that's when Lorraine makes the mistake I knew she'd make. Because when Lorraine can't control a conversation, well, you away like yesterday's trash. At least you away like yesterday's trash. At least we took you in. At least we gave you something. The table next to us goes silent. I hear a fork hit a plate, not set down, dropped. Pastor Jim turns fully in his chair. Maggie, behind the register, puts down the coffee pot. Glenn reaches for Lorraine's arm. Lorraine, maybe… No. She shakes him off. Gee, she needs to hear this. Nobody else wanted you, Paige. She leans in, her voice carrying in that way it does when she's forgotten there are walls. Nobody. I feel the heat rise from my chest to my jaw. Not shame. Something older and sharper. Something that has been building for 8 months, waiting for exactly this line to be crossed. Because I've met Helen Dunbar, I've sat at her kitchen table. I've read her letter, the one where she describes the night she gave birth alone at 22, while her family pressured her to sign papers she didn't understand. I know who Helen is, and hearing Lorraine call her some druggie in front of 40 people is the one thing I cannot let stand. In the far corner, Helen has heard every word. Tom's hand is on her shoulder. Cody's jaw is clenched. I look at Lorraine. Are you done? I say. She straightens her dress. Yes. And I set it beside my water glass. Second, a $1 bill. I set it beside my water glass. Second, a printed DNA report, 99.7% match. I lay it flat on the table. Third, a photograph, taken last month. Me, standing between a woman and a man, all 3 of us squinting in the sun, smiling. Real smiles. The kind you can't fake. I set the photo in the center of the table. Facing Lorraine. Funny you should bring up my real mother, I say. Because I found her, 8 months ago. Lorraine's face goes still, not shocked, frozen, like a screen that's crashed but hasn't turned off yet. Glenn pushes back from the table, his chair scraping the floor. Her name is Helen Dunbar. She's a community health nurse in Ridgemont. She's been waiting 25 years to find me. I keep my voice level, every word measured. She didn't throw me away. She was 22, and alone, and her family forced her hand. That's not the same thing as being unwanted. Lorraine looks down at the photograph. She sees me standing between 2 people she's never met, wearing an expression she's never seen on my face. A daughter who looks like she belongs. That's… You can't… Lorraine starts, but the words tangle. And one more thing, I say. I pause. Not for drama. Because I need this next sentence to land exactly right. They're here, right now. In this restaurant. Lorraine's head snaps up. Her eyes dart across the room, past the booths, past the bar, past Pastor Jim, searching. Glenn grips the edge of the table like the floor just tilted, and in the far corner, Helen Dunbar sets down her napkin and waits for my signal. Okay, I need to pause the story here for a second because I know what some of you are thinking. Paige, why didn't you just leave months ago? Why wait for their big reveal? Fair question. Honestly? Well, part of me needed to hear it from their mouths. Not from a piece of paper in a basement, but spoken out loud with witnesses. Because that's the difference between suspecting something and knowing it. Now, what do you think Lorraine did when I said my biological family was sitting in the restaurant? Did she apologize? Did she double down? Did she try to bolt? Drop your guess in the comments. All right, back to Friday night at Maggie's. I turn toward the far corner of the restaurant. I nod once. Helen stands, then Tom, then Cody. 3 people rise from their table and begin walking across Maggie's place. Not fast, not slow, not making a scene. Just walking. The way you walk towards someone you've been looking for your whole life. Helen is in a simple blue blouse, the one she wore the first time we met. Her eyes are red, but her back is straight. Tom is a step behind, solid, quiet, his hand hovering near the small of Helen's back. Cody follows, hands in his pockets, jaw set. The restaurant notices. Conversations thin out, then stop. Silverware goes still. Even the George Strait song seems to pull back, the chorus fading to nothing as Helen crosses the room. Lorraine tracks them like a deer tracking headlights. Helen reaches our table and stands beside me. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. She places one hand on my shoulder, warm, steady, deliberate. The hand of someone who's been rehearsing this gesture for 25 years and still almost can't believe she gets to do it. Tom stops just behind Helen, arms at his sides. Cody flanks his mother's other side. Maggie sets down her coffee pot and folds her arms, watching. Pastor Jim has turned completely around in his chair, napkin still tucked in his collar. I look at Lorraine. Lorraine, Glenn. My voice is calm, clear. This is Helen. My mother. The word mother lands like a stone dropped into still water. I watch the ripple cross Lorraine's face. Confusion, recognition, fury, all in the space of a breath. She opens her mouth, but Helen speaks first. I'm not here to cause trouble, Helen says. Her voice is quiet, calm. The voice of a woman who speaks to scared patients all day and has learned that volume never helps. I'm here because my daughter asked me to be. Lorraine stands so fast her chair bumps the table. Then wine sloshes over the rim of her glass and pools on the paper she brought for me to sign. Your daughter? Lorraine's voice pitches high. I raised her for 25 years. And you just told her she was useless. The sentence travels. I hear it land at the next table, at Pastor Jim's booth, at the bar. Maggie's hand rises to her mouth. Lorraine spins toward Glenn. Say something! Glenn opens his mouth, closes it. And his hands are flat on the table like he's trying to keep it from floating away. He says nothing. Lorraine turns back to me. Her eyes are wild now. Not hurt, not ashamed. Cornered. You planned this, she says. You planned this to humiliate me. No, I say. I planned this so I wouldn't be alone when you did what you did. She blinks hard. The distinction between revenge and self-protection doesn't register. It won't. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Lorraine scans the room, and every pair of eyes she meets looks away or holds steady, but none of them offer what she's looking for. Karen from the post office, the woman Lorraine has told the selfless mother story to 100 times, is sitting 4 tables back with her hand over her mouth. She heard everything, the tax benefits, the useless, the nobody wanted you. Karen heard it all, and Lorraine can see it on her face. This is completely inappropriate, Lorraine says, but her voice has lost its edge. I was a tax write-off too, I say. You was a tax write-off too, I say. You didn't seem to mind then. Glenn's face collapses, not dramatically, quietly, like a wall settling after years of bad foundation. He knows I'm right. He knows it the way you know your back tire is flat. You felt it pulling for miles, and you just kept driving. Tom steps forward. Not aggressively. He simply moves to stand beside Helen, one hand resting on the back of my chair. His presence fills the space Glenn left empty. We're not here for a fight, Tom says. His voice is low, calm, and carries the particular weight of a man who builds things with his hands and doesn't waste words. We're here for Paige. Glenn looks at Tom. For one long exposed moment, the 2 men occupy the same frame, and the comparison needs no narration. One man drove 2.5 hours to stand behind a daughter he barely knows. The other couldn't stand up to his wife across a dinner table for the one he raised. Glenn reaches for his jacket on the back of his chair. I think we should go, Lorraine. I'm not going anywhere until she apologizes, Lorraine says, but her voice is cracking at the seams. She points at me. After everything I have nothing to apologize for, I say. Lorraine stares at me. I hold her gaze. I don't blink. I don't soften. And I don't raise my voice because I don't have to. The room is already listening. Glenn stands and walks toward the door. He doesn't take Lorraine's arm. He doesn't wait for her. For the first time in 30 years, Glenn Mercer walks away from his wife in public, and Lorraine is left standing alone. Lorraine's eyes sweep the restaurant one last time, searching for an ally. They land on Pastor Jim. Jim? Her voice breaks slightly. You know me. You know what kind of mother I've been. Tell them. Pastor Jim looks at Lorraine for a long moment. His wife places a hand on his forearm. The whole restaurant holds its breath, because Jim Hadley has stood at that pulpit for 19 years, and when he speaks, this town listens. I think maybe this is a conversation you need to have with God and with your daughter, Lorraine, he says gently. Not with me. No judgment in his voice, no harshness. Somehow that makes it worse. Lorraine's face does something I've never seen before. It crumples. Not into sadness, into the realization that the story she's been telling for 25 years has just ended, and every person in this room watched it happen. She grabs her purse, doesn't pick up the unsigned paper, doesn't take the pen, doesn't look at me. She walks to the door, heels clicking on the hardwood floor. It's the loudest sound in the restaurant. Glenn is waiting by the exit. Before he follows Lorraine out, he turns back. His mouth opens. I think he's about to say something. An apology, maybe. An explanation. A goodbye. But nothing comes. He looks at me, then at Helen's hand on my shoulder, and he closes his mouth. Nods once, slow and small, like a man acknowledging something he should have acknowledged years ago. The front door swings shut behind them. A bell jingles overhead. The restaurant exhales. I look down at the table. Lorraine's wine glass still half full. The paper is soaked and unsigned. The pen uncapped and useless. And beside them, my photo, my letter, and the truth she couldn't outrun. The noise comes back in layers. A murmur at the booth near the window. A fork scraping a plate. The kitchen door swinging open, swinging shut. George Strait picks back up mid-verse, and life at Maggie's place begins to reassemble itself around the empty chair where Lorraine Mercer sat. Helen slides into that chair. Tom takes the one beside her. Cody drags a chair from the next table and wedges it in at the end, his long legs bumping the table leg. Nobody speaks for a few seconds. Helen is holding my hand. Her fingers are cold. She's been gripping the armrest at her own table for the last 20 minutes. But her hold is firm. She's not letting go. Then her eyes fill. Not the polite dabbing at the corners kind. The real kind. 25 years of not knowing, not holding, not being there. All of it rising at once. I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner, she whispers. I squeeze her hand. You're here now. That's what matters. Tom clears his throat. His eyes are red too, but he's the kind of man who'll hold that in until he's alone in his truck later tonight. He pulls a napkin from the dispenser and sets it quietly beside Helen. The silence stretches, warm and strange and ours. Then Cody picks up a menu. So, can we order? He says. I drove 2.5 hours and I'm starving. The laugh that comes out of me is sudden and messy and completely real. Helen laughs too, a wet, hiccuping sound that makes Tom grin. Even Pastor Jim, 2 tables over, cracks a smile. And then Maggie appears at our table with extra place settings balanced on her forearm. This one's on the house tonight, she says. All of it. She walks away before anyone can argue. As after the food arrives, Cody ordered both the ribs and the chicken fried steak, I pull Helen's letter from the envelope. Can I read part of this? I ask her. Out loud? Helen's hand goes to her throat. She nods. I unfold the hospital stationery. 2 pages, front and back, in handwriting that starts neat and gets shakier by the second paragraph. I don't read all of it. Just a piece. The part I think matters most. Helen wrote about the night I was born. A Thursday. Raining. She was 22, alone in a delivery room, and the only person who came was a nurse named Diane, who held her hand through the last 3 hours. She wrote about the hospital wristband they fastened to my wrist, how she memorized every letter before they took me to the nursery. She wrote about the candles. Every March 15th, I read aloud. I light a candle and I set it on the kitchen windowsill. Tom knows, Cody knows, they never asked me to explain. I have never missed a year. I fold the letter. The table is quiet. Tom is looking at his plate. Cody is looking at his mother. I don't read the rest, because the rest is between Helen and me. About the family who pressured her. About the papers she signed at 22 without anyone explaining what they meant. About 2 decades of guilt that Helen carried like a second skeleton inside her body. But the restaurant has heard enough. That Karen, Lorraine's coworker from the post office, gets up from her table and walks over. She stands next to me, clutching her napkin. "I'm so sorry, Paige," she says. "I didn't know." I nod. "Thank you, Karen." She goes back to her seat. I watch her pull out her phone and begin typing. By morning, every person in this town will know. The photograph is still lying in the center of the table, beside the pool of Lorraine's spilled wine. Maggie comes by to clear the wet paper and the pen Lorraine left behind. She pauses when she sees the photo, picks it up carefully, tilts it toward the light. "Is this your family, honey?" she asks. I look at Helen, who is wiping her eyes with the napkin Tom gave her. At Tom, who is quietly cutting Cody's chicken fried steak because Cody already destroyed the ribs and is too proud to ask for help. At Cody, who catches me looking and grins with barbecue sauce on his chin. "Yeah," I say. It is." Maggie studies the photo for another moment. "Beautiful family," she says softly, almost to herself. She sets it down gently and moves on to the next table. "I've been in this restaurant 100 times, maybe more. Every visit, Lorraine would make a point of greeting everyone, the hostess, the regulars, the pastor, and somewhere in the hellos, she'd work it in. Paige is so lucky we took her in. Adoption is the greatest thing we ever did. We gave her everything. And every time, I'd smile, nod, play the role of the grateful daughter in Lorraine's one-woman show. Tonight is the first time I've sat at a table in Maggie's place and not performed a single thing." Cody nudges me with his elbow. "Hey, sis, you gonna eat your cornbread or can I have it? Touch my cornbread and you lose that hand." He grins. Tom shakes his head. Helen laughs. A real laugh, the kind that fills her whole face. This is it. This is what a family dinner is supposed to feel like. Ordinary. Loud, unscripted. I've been waiting 25 years for ordinary. Helen tells me I weighed 6 pounds, 11 ounces. That I had one curl of red hair right on top of my head. Like a little flame, she says. Exactly like Tom when he was a baby. Tom confirms this with a nod and zero additional commentary, which I'm learning is peak Tom Dunbar communication. He asks about my work at the clinic, but unlike Lorraine, he listens. Actually listens. He asks follow-up questions. What's the hardest part? What's my favorite animal to treat? Do I ever get bitten? When I tell him I got bit by a Pomeranian last week, he laughs so hard he has to put his fork down. Cody shows me a meme on his phone. I don't get it. He explains it. I still don't get it. He tells me I'm hopeless but in a lovable way. And I realize this is probably how siblings talk to each other, and I've been missing it my whole life. For an hour, we eat, we talk. Nobody brings up Lorraine. Nobody brings up the tax benefits or the paper or the apartment. We just sit in Maggie's place on a Friday night like a family having dinner. Near the end of the meal, Helen reaches into her bag and pulls out a small box. She sets it in front of me. "I've been carrying this for 25 years, she says. "It belongs with you." I open it. Inside, resting on a square of cotton, is a hospital wristband, tiny, faded pink. The ink barely legible. Baby girl Dunbar. Helen has threaded it onto a simple silver chain. I fasten it around my wrist without a word. The plastic is brittle and light. It weighs almost nothing, but it's the heaviest thing I've ever worn. For 25 years, I thanked the wrong people for keeping me. Tonight, I'm sitting with the ones who never stopped wanting me. I want to step outside the story for a moment. Looking back, and I think the hardest part wasn't hearing Lorraine say what she said. It was realizing I had spent 25 years performing gratitude for people who saw me as a line item on a tax return. If you've ever been in a situation where someone held your basic needs over your head, housing, insurance, documents, whatever, and called it love, you know exactly what I mean. Here's my question for you. Why do you think Lorraine chose a public restaurant for this? Was it to keep me quiet? Or to keep herself feeling in control? Let me know in the comments. Okay, let me tell you what happened the next morning. I wake up in the garage apartment for the last time. The ceiling is the same water-stained drywall I've stared at for 7 years. The window looks out onto Lorraine's herb garden, which she planted for the neighbors to admire, not to use. Everything in this room is familiar, and none of it is mine. I pack my life into 4 cardboard boxes. That's all it takes. Clothes, the books, the photo of Helen and Tom, my vet tech certifications, a coffee mug Claire gave me that says, "I'd rather be covered in dog hair." 7 years in this apartment, and my whole life fits in the back seat of a Honda Civic. Claire comes over at 8. She doesn't ask questions. She just starts carrying boxes. At 9, I call the insurance marketplace. Change of address, qualifying life event. New plan effective in 60 days. I write down the confirmation number on the back of a gas station receipt and fold it into my wallet. At 9:30, I walk across the yard to the main house. The lights are off. Lorraine's car is in the driveway, but the curtains are drawn. She's in there, but she doesn't want to see me, and I don't need to see her. I leave the apartment key on the kitchen counter. Next to it, I place the move-out paper, signed, Bet with one line written beneath my signature in blue ink. You don't need 30 days. I'm done today. No letter, no speech, no final scene. Claire and I pull out of the driveway at 10. I don't look in the rearview mirror for the first 3 miles. Then I do. The house is small and getting smaller. I don't cry when I leave. I cry 15 minutes later when the GPS voice says, "You are now entering Ridgemont," and it sounds like the first true thing anyone has told me in years. And the following week, I visit a legal aid office in Ridgemont. Free consultation. The attorney is a woman named Sandra who has a desk covered in family photos and a handshake that could crack a walnut. I tell her everything. She listens with her pen still, which I've learned means she's hearing something that doesn't surprise her. First things first, Sandra says. There is no legal mechanism in this state, or any state, to disown an adult child. Your father was bluffing. She lets that sink in. He may have consulted someone, or he may have just said that to scare you. Either way, there's no paperwork he can file, no petition he can submit, and no judge who would hear it. You are a legal adult. The adoption was finalized 25 years ago. It's done. I feel something loosen in my chest, a knot I didn't realize I'd been carrying since the night Glenn said, "We've consulted a lawyer," in that tight, rehearsed voice. And as Sandra helps me file a request with the county clerk for my original birth certificate and the full adoption record. 3 weeks later, a manila envelope arrives at the Dunbar house. Inside, my birth certificate. The real one, with Helen's name. And in the adoption file, a detail I didn't know. Helen didn't voluntarily relinquish me. Her parents signed on her behalf. She was 22, but at the time in that county, the family had pressured her through a process she barely understood. And no one explained her rights. No attorney represented her. Helen was in the kitchen when I read that page. I didn't show her, not yet. Some truths need the right moment. That night, I text Glenn. Just one message. The lawyer confirmed there's no such thing as legally disowning an adult child. You know that. I hope someday you think about why you went along with it. He reads it at 9:47 p.m. He never replies. 1 month out. I'm in the guest room at the Dunbar house, paying $300 a month that Helen refuses to cash. So I leave the checks on the kitchen counter, and eventually Tom slips them into the household jar when Helen isn't looking. We have an unspoken system. The new vet clinic in Ridgemont is smaller. Dr. Patel runs a 2-person operation, her and me, and the waiting room smells like wet golden retriever by 9 a.m. every morning. It's perfect. Cody and I watch movies on Saturday nights. He insists on horror, and I insist on anything else. We compromise on action movies and argue about pizza toppings with the kind of passion that only siblings can generate over pepperoni. Helen teaches me her lasagna recipe on a Sunday afternoon. Midway through layering the noodles, she stops and stares at my hands. "You roll your sleeves the same way I do," she says. I look down. She's right. Same fold, same crease, same tuck at the elbow. 25 years apart, and our hands learned the same habit. She doesn't say anything else about it. She doesn't need to. I start looking at apartments in town. One bedrooms, 650 to 800. I can make it work with the new job. 2 months, maybe 3, and I'll have my own place. First time in my life. Truly, completely, only mine. In the evenings, I sit on the Dunbar's back porch. The yard runs into a tree line, and if you're quiet, you can hear the creak behind the oaks. One night, Tom comes out and sits in the chair next to mine. And he doesn't say anything. He sets a mug of coffee on the armrest between us and looks out at the same sky. We sit like that for 10 minutes, silent, comfortable. That's what family sounds like when it's real. Sometimes it doesn't sound like anything at all. In a town of 4,000, news doesn't travel. It migrates. Door to door, pew to pew, aisle to aisle at the grocery store. Karen tells her sister tells the book club tells the PTA. Within 48 hours, and every living room in town has heard some version of what happened at Maggie's place. Sunday morning, Lorraine walks into church. The pews around her usual spot are emptier than normal. Not dramatically, just enough. One family shifted left. Another arrived early and sat further back. Small adjustments, polite distances, the way a small town says we know, without saying a word. Pastor Jim's sermon that morning is about stewardship. He doesn't mention Lorraine by name. He doesn't need to. There's a difference, he says from the pulpit, between raising a child and owning one. Lorraine doesn't come back the following Sunday. On Monday, she posts on Facebook. A single line. Sometimes being a parent means making the hardest decisions for your children's own good. She gets 3 likes, 47 comments, and not the kind she wanted. What decisions, Lorraine? We heard what happened at Maggie's. Is it true about the tax credits? She deletes the post within 2 hours. Claire tells me all of this over the phone, piece by piece, like a weather report from a town I no longer live in. They voted her off the church bazaar committee, Claire says one evening. Who told you? Maggie. She heard it from Jim's wife. I nod, even though Claire can't see me. I don't feel victorious. I don't feel vindicated. I feel something quieter than that, like watching a house you built burn down and realizing it was never structurally sound to begin with. That's not my problem anymore, I say. And I mean it. 3 weeks later, Glenn calls. I almost don't pick up. I'm in the middle of weighing a beagle who will not stop squirming, but something makes me set the dog down and step into the hallway. Paige? His voice sounds like he hasn't slept in a week. I didn't want it to go like that. How did you want it to go, Glenn? Silence. I hear him breathing. You'd understand. We were broke when you'd understand. We were broke when we got you. The credits kept us afloat. And then your mother, Lorraine, she got used to the arrangement. He catches himself on the name. Your mother, Lorraine. Like even he can hear the separation now. The arrangement, I repeat. Is that what you called raising me? I'm not good at this. Paige. I know, I say. You were never good at standing up when it mattered. He's quiet again. I can hear a TV in the background. Some game show. He's alone. I'm not angry, Glenn, I say. And I realize as I say it that it's true. Anger left me somewhere around Ridgemont. What's left is something heavier and quieter. I'm just done. Can we... He stops, doesn't finish the sentence. As I think he was going to say try again, or start over, or some other phrase that sounds hopeful in the mouth and hollow in the ear. Maybe someday, I say. But right now, I need space. And you need to figure out why you let her do what she did for 25 years. I hang up, set the phone on the counter, go back to the beagle. He doesn't call again. But on Tuesday mornings, a 2-word text arrives. Hope you're well. I reply, I am. That's enough, for now. Claire gives me the update in her usual deadpan. Brittany moved out. I'm restocking exam room supplies, counting heartworm pills. Moved out of what? Your apartment, the garage. She lasted 6 weeks. I stopped counting. What happened? She heard the whole story from about 15 different people. Told her friends she felt like she was living in someone else's eviction. Moved in with a roommate on the other side of town. I think about Brittany, 23, fresh off a breakup, and just looking for a cheap place to crash? She didn't ask for any of this. She was just the excuse Lorraine needed. She texted me, actually, I tell Claire. Brittany texted you? Found me on Facebook, said, "Hey, I'm sorry about what happened. If it helps, I didn't ask for any of this either." What did you say? I know, it's not your fault. Because it isn't. Brittany is a pawn, same as I was. Just a different square on Lorraine's board. Claire is quiet for a moment. And then, so the apartment's empty now. Yeah. Lorraine kicked you out for Brittany. Brittany left. And now the apartment is just sitting there. Yep. That's poetic. That's Lorraine. The irony isn't lost on me. Lorraine dismantled my life, my housing, my insurance, my identity, to make room for a niece who didn't want to stay. She lost her daughter, her community standing, and her church committee seat. And the apartment is empty. The whole thing was for nothing. As Claire also tells me, Lorraine's been avoiding Maggie's place, drives 20 minutes to the next town for groceries, hasn't been seen at the salon or the post office social hour. She's building her own exile, brick by brick. I don't comment. I don't celebrate. I just go back to counting heartworm pills. Some things sort themselves out. 1 year later, March 15th. I'm 26, and for the first time in my life, my birthday dinner doesn't come with a script. At the table at the Dunbar house is set for 5. Helen made lasagna, the same recipe she taught me, except hers is better and probably always will be. Tom grilled steaks on the back porch because you can't have a birthday without something charred. Cody bought a cake from the bakery in town and wrote "Happy Birthday, Sis" on it in frosting that's already starting to slide. Claire drove 2.5 hours to be here. She walks in with a bottle of wine and a card that reads, "Sa," to the only coworker I'd commit a felony for. No envelope on this table, no unsigned papers, no pen, no exit strategy disguised as a celebration. Helen brings out the cake with 26 candles. The kitchen fills with light. "This is the first time I get to do this in person," she says, and her voice catches on the last word. I close my eyes over the candles. I don't make a wish. Everything I need is already sitting at this table, loud, imperfect, and here. I blow them out. Cody claps. Tom reaches over and squeezes my shoulder. Claire raises her wineglass. Helen cries a little, which makes me cry a little, which makes Cody roll his eyes and say, "Here we go," which makes everyone laugh. On my wrist, the hospital bracelet on its silver chain, faded pink plastic, barely legible ink. I wear it every day, not as a reminder of what I lost, as proof of what I found. I have my own apartment now, $650 a month, second floor, with a window that faces the tree line. And I pay every bill myself. Marketplace insurance, my name on every document, nobody's tax benefit, nobody's arrangement, just Paige. So here's what I want to leave you with. Not advice. I'm 26. I'm in no position to give advice. Just what I've learned. Lorraine didn't destroy me that night at Maggie's. She freed me. She just didn't know it. I don't hate her. Hate takes energy I'd rather spend on the people who actually want me around. And honestly, hating Lorraine would mean she still occupies space in my life, and I've spent 25 years giving her space she didn't earn. Glenn texts me sometimes. Short messages, always on Tuesday mornings. "Hope you're well." I reply, "I am." 2 words, but I mean them. Maybe someday we'll have a longer conversation. Maybe we won't. That door isn't locked. It's just closed. And I get to decide when it opens. Helen and I are still learning each other. She apologizes too much for missing my first word, my first day of school, my first everything. I tell her to stop. She cries. I get awkward. We're both figuring it out. That's okay. Real families aren't perfect. They're present. Tom taught me how to change a tire last month. I'm 26. I should have learned at 16. But the man who was supposed to teach me was too busy not making waves. Cody still sends me memes I don't understand. I pretend to get them. He knows I'm pretending. It's our thing. And here's the part I want you to hear. Whoever you are, wherever you're listening, if someone holds your basic needs hostage, housing, insurance, documents, access, and calls it love, that's not love, that's leverage. And you don't owe gratitude for leverage. I didn't get revenge that night at Maggie's place. I got clarity. And clarity, it turns out, is louder than any speech I could have given. Tonight, I'm sitting in my apartment in Ridgemont. The one with the window that faces the trees. The dishes from dinner are still in the sink. Claire left an hour ago. Cody texted me a birthday meme. I don't get it, but I sent a laughing emoji anyway. On my kitchen windowsill, I set a candle, just a simple white taper in a glass holder, the kind you buy for $2 at the hardware store. I light it. For 25 years, Helen lit a candle on this date. Every March 15th, a small flame on her kitchen windowsill, marking the birthday of a daughter she couldn't hold. Tom knew. Cody knew. They never asked her to explain. It was just what she did. A quiet ritual of love that never stopped, even when she had no reason to believe it would ever be returned. Now it's my turn. But I'm not lighting this candle for loss. I'm lighting it for the start of something. For the first birthday I celebrated without performing gratitude. For the first year I've lived on ground that nobody can pull out from under me. For Helen, who waited. For Tom, who showed up. For Cody, who called me sis before I was ready to hear it, and kept saying it until I was. I look at the candle, at the hospital bracelet on my wrist, at the photo on my bookshelf, the one from last month, all 5 of us crammed onto the Dunbar's back porch, nobody looking at the camera, everyone laughing at something Cody said. I spent 25 years being someone's tax benefit, now I'm just someone's daughter. And that's more than enough. The flame flickers once, then holds steady. So do I. That's my story. Thank you for staying until the end. It means more than you know. If this hit close to home, or if you've ever been in a situation where someone used your needs against you and called it love, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. You don't have to share names, just the moment you realized enough was enough. And if you want more stories like this, there's one in the description that I think you'll really connect with. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and take care of your boundaries.